Hey there, teacher friends and Crest Online recorded participants. Welcome to Crest Online Recorded Training, Part 3, Constructed Response, Lesson 3, where we do the constructed responses for a poem. Now, I want you to think of every single question that your students can get on any test as the red light. You can buy these little boxes of little blocks, if you want to call them that, in red, yellow, green, and blue, which are very important because of the way I teach a lot of the questioning techniques in my Crest online training and on my folders for those of you who watch the free videos. So when you open your eyes and see a question, whether it is regular reading, multiple choice, constructed response, or short answer, or writing, editing, revising, or extended essay response, there's always going to be an answer to that question. And for 75% of the questions, it will be multiple choice, where there will be, for that one question, there'll be one answer. I put one Smarty inside the answer box. For editing and revising, most of the questions are going to be like that as well. But sometimes in editing and revising, there's also going to be some constructed responses that will still be worth only 1 point. And so I'll be showing you in this video today, reading constructed response. You're also going to see some short answer where they ask the question, red light, and the short answer is going to have an answer in a complete sentence, red light for the first point, and then they're going to have to do two things. They're either going to have to say where the evidence is and what the evidence is to get 2 points, the yellow light, or they've got to give the evidence in quotation marks, or they can give the evidence without quotation marks. And I've seen it so many different ways. And even though you're going to see a question, that short answer in this video, we're not going to answer it because right now in our Crest online training, we're working on part 3. There's just a constructed response. The other kind of question you're going to see as part of this video is an extended essay response. So you open your eyes and you say, okay, there is a topic, there's a question with some sort of topic, and you think of your left eye as the question and your right eye will be your central idea in elementary, your controlling idea in middle school, or your thesis in high school. And then you get into the evidence, where it's at to earn the second point. We'll call that the yellow light. And then to get the green light, to go green, you have to explain and express those examples of the evidence that you use. And so What we're going to focus on mainly today is the constructed response, where your students will get one question in a complete sentence, and your students will have to give the answer. And sometimes there's going to be only one answer worth 1 point. There'll be two answers. It'll be worth 2 points. There might be three answers, but it's still only worth 2 points. There could be 4 or 5 answers in constructed, but it's still only going to be worth 2, 1, or 0 points, depending on what the testing committee determines is enough to get partial credit for those multiple response answers. So it's better to show you than to tell you. So take note of my email address on the upper right-hand corner, my website that can allow you to see all my materials and my training information. If you're having trouble finding a specific thing, like if you are looking for the folder we're about to look at, or if you're looking for the Crest Online training, if you're perhaps searching for, I don't really need the training, but I would love the practice test. Those will be available for a minimal cost. Just message me and I'll give you a link to any of the practice tests that you see here on YouTube or Facebook. So let me first show you my folder. We've already done part 1 editing, fixing the conventions, part 2 revising, fixing the content, and now we're on part 3 constructed response. And so what I went ahead and did for you was showed you in advance each question number that we're going to look at for a poem, and so you can see what kind of question. The first question we're going to see is called an inline choice with a drop-down menu. The second question will be multi-select, where there's more than one correct answer to a question, and that will be worth always 2 points. And unfortunately, in my communication with the director of reading from TEA, if it has 3, 4, or 5 answers, and you at least get 1 or 2 correct, they still don't know if you're going to get partial credit. So I'm hoping that the way it works is if you get all of the answers correct, meaning 2, 3, 4, or 5, you get 2 points. If you get at least 1 correct, then you should get at least 1 point. That would be the simplest way to help students and teachers understand how to do that. That's just me. The third question, which will show you but skip over, will be a short answer where we need the red light and the yellow light that we mentioned. The fourth one will be a two-part question, part A and B, and that's the kind, and because I wanted to make sure that it was very clear that if you get part A correct, then you can qualify to get the point that comes from part B. So I went ahead and separated the questions because the way it works is if question number 4 is wrong, then it doesn't matter whether question number 5 is right or wrong, you still won't get that point. Number 6, I went ahead and threw in a regular multiple choice, which will always be A, B, C, D format in an online test. Number 7, you're going to see an example of hot text. where you're going to use evidence from the text that's in the form of a sentence or a paragraph or some extended reading, and you'll select one or more. Sometimes the hot text will be worth 1 point, and sometimes it will be worth 2 points if there are two, three, or four uh, text portions that you need to select. But again, you're only going to get 1 or 2 points, regardless of how many hot text sections that you check off. Number 8 is going to be what is called a text entry, a string of text with a number, a word, or a phrase. Number 9 is going to be, as you can see, a big 9 there, an extended essay question, which is going to be part 5 of the CREST online training, where I guide you through what to do and how to do all of these different colors, how to go from a 1 in red to a 2 in yellow to a 3 in green, and then how to bring closure, conventions, and content as we tie it all together to hopefully get a 4 or a 5 on the essay response. And then because it's going to be graded by two different people, the product of 5 and 2 could be a possible 10. And keep in mind that the two graders on an extended essay response don't have to pick the same grade, but if one picks a 5, the other one has to be a 5 or a 4. If one has a 4, the other one needs to be a 4 or a 3. If one has a 3, then the other one has to be a 3 or a 2. If one grader picks a 2, then the other person has to pick a 2 or a 1. And finally, this is the weird one. If one person says the answer only deserves 1 point, the other person has to say 1 point or 2, as we mentioned before, because if one person says 1 and one says 0, 0, as always before, is going to be unscorable, and TEA in their official rubrics and their scoring guides will have some sort of guidelines on what is going to get your students a 0. And the number one answer for getting a 0 is you didn't answer the question. So you could have all the textual evidence in the world, and more than likely that foundation has to be there. In the old days, if they gave the evidence or answered the question, they would give it a 1. But we shall see once the rubrics and scoring guides come out, if you give the evidence without the answer, will they give it a 0? Or can you earn at least the 1 point? But we do know that if you give the answer but don't give the evidence, then you're stuck in point 1. What I don't know, which we will soon see once they release the scoring guide, is if they give some evidence, write down some text, but don't have an answer to a question using the student's own words and some words from the question, because as you can see here, what original words from the question can I use? What other words in terms of synonyms can I use, and what original way? So the concept is to check and see, is the question asking for an idea or ideas, like a text structure, like a cause and effect relationship, a compare and a contrast, a conflict and a resolution, a positive to a negative to a positive, a good to a bad. The students have to really think carefully what exactly are they asking in that question. So as I mentioned, since question number 9 will be part 5, we will skip over that. We will write crest part 5 on that one. Then we'll skip right down to our last one, the match table grid response. Uh, and as you can see, for reading, anything above the red line on your advanced folder can be used in a reading / writing ELAR test. Anything below the line or above the line can be used on the social studies, the science, the math responses. So it's important that we understand that we can't just be having reading teachers practicing these constructed responses, because all of the subjects are going to have constructed responses of these types, and all of social studies, science, science, biology, that you all are going to be receiving some of these short answer responses. Yes, only reading will get a 10.1, but that's beside the point. So let me go ahead and walk you through the test, and we're going to do all of the questions except for the short answer question and the extended essay question. So it's going to be based on a genre called a poem called the Composition Notebook, and it's a poem in free verse, meaning there's no rhyme, there's no rhythm, there's no pattern. It's just someone telling a story uh, in first person or second person, past, present, or future. And as you can see, each line um, can be a phrase or a sentence, and every fifth line is marked. So that's what it looks like. I also want you to notice that the test will be untimed as of right now, that no more will they place a time limit except for what's called the school day. And some teachers, some schools got around the school day, meaning that they would allow the kids to test until 5, and some would allow the kids to test just until the bell rang at the end of the day. So I think that TEA needs to step in and say, here's an exact definition of a school day. It's from this time to this time in the day, so that some students don't have an unfair advantage. So if you look carefully at the instructions, it said to read the selection and choose the best answer. And we can do that, but I'm going to show you how I don't need to always do that. In stanza 3, which I went ahead and wrote inside the online testing format, the inline choice was the first one, as I mentioned. I went ahead and put the question, then I put the type of question so you can become familiar with what they look like. And if you do have the advanced folders and you laminated them, your students with either their dry erase or wet erase or permanent marker can be checking up what kind of question in constructed response or short answer or extended is being used. When the sister of the speaker couldn't find, let me get this out of the way a little bit, uh, understand her excitement about finding the composition notebook, the speaker most likely feels what? Well, let's look at the choices for the drop-down menu. Angry, confused, embarrassed, or unconcerned. Well, since that's stanza 3, my sister told me it was crazy for me to understand, to just stand there overcome with joy. That's not my sister. We're asking about how does the speaker feel? So when you annotate, make sure you pay attention. Who are they talking about in the response? The speaker most likely feels what when the sister of the speaker couldn't understand her excitement about what? Finding the composition notebook. So the stanza itself, and I tried to choose questions based on what I saw were so, excuse me, sort of rigorous questions, which force your students to have to go a little bit before the stanza and a little bit after to be able to respond to the question. So stanza 3 on its own, she couldn't understand how the smell, feel, and sight of something as simple as bright white paper could bring me so much happiness. It didn't make sense to her that as she seemed to be thinking, why does she even need a notebook? She can't even write. So seemed to be thinking you can kind of infer that those were just the speaker imagining what her sister was thinking. So what you might have to do is take a look at the poem just before measure 3. It was not difficult to, it was difficult not to smile or dance. As I held it tightly, I could feel the gentle breeze as I fanned over its pages. And so here comes the part where the sister's responding. So I'll scroll down to stanza 4 for just a second to get an idea. For days and days, all I could do was absorb the smell of the pages, hold the notebook close to my heart, and listen to the sound the paper would make. I knew that somehow, some way, the new sound I would hear would be the magical words that would be written on them by my own hand. So, as you can see here, it doesn't even have a response from what the sister did. So most likely we need the most neutral response to the question. So let's take a look at that again. Angry is not a neutral response. Confused is sad. There was no sadness there. Embarrassed, she didn't start turning red. She didn't start uh, getting flustered. Unconcerned. Unconcerned comes from the root word concerned. So un meaning not means I'm not concerned. I don't really care what my sister thinks. And that's what you would have to guess there. And so your drop down menu for 1 point would have been that. So we'll clear the drawings and go to the next one. Number 2, which point of view does the author use in this poem? Select 2 correct answers. So more than one correct answer to a poem. So as you can see it, point of view, is it first person, second person, or third person? First person, I or me? I, one finger pointing up, 3 fingers pointing down. I or me? And I can see I's and me's in there. So we're going to go with first person. And I'm going to read until I find out it was this there in front of me, whoever this person is, speckled black and white, the paper inside, like I could feel my, but I could, like something falling into my entire body to live there, empty for now. I don't know how my first composition notebook ended up in my hands, only before I could read. Someone must have known all I needed. I could tell it was difficult to smile and not dance. I could feel the gentle breeze. My sister told me it was crazy. So apparently, the author is not the sister. So in lines 11, my sister and she couldn't understand. So the sister is not the poem. The speaker is the poem. So when you look at the choices, one will have to be first person because of I and me, and the speaker is talking, not her sister. Yes, the speaker is a sister, but when she says my sister, that's what we're referring to in B, and the one who's writing the poem is known as the speaker. So more than one answer would be A and C. Why is the second stanza, line 6, important to the poem? Support your answer with evidence. So this is one of those ones that's a short answer. So we're going to write here part 3 for those that are interested. Sorry, part 3 is constructed. Part 4 will be on short answer questions using the red light and the yellow light as the answer to the question and the evidence. So we'll see that one when we go over part 4. Next question. What is one conflict for the speaker of the poem? And again, so that we make sure that we understand that in order to get partial credit, this question must be correct to get the first point. So I think it would be really important at the beginning to separate the questions so that the students know that I cannot get part B if I can't even get part A correct. Okay. Nowhere in the passage can I find that my sister doesn't care about me as the speaker. I can just tell that she doesn't think I should be investing so much energy and time into this composition notebook that I found. She didn't know where the composition notebook came from. Okay. Now keep in mind what the question is. What is one conflict? A conflict is something that the speaker has to overcome. So you have to be careful when you choose your conflict. The conflict could be and is normally something negative that she has to overcome. So let's look at the answer choices and see which one is negative. She didn't know where the composition came from. Well, she doesn't dwell on that very long. She only stays there. Clear that drawing. I don't know how it ended up in my hands. That was on line 6. But right away, she went on to something else. And so if she didn't dwell on that, then it doesn't seem to be a huge conflict. So yes, that would be a slight problem, but nothing that she dwelled on or camped out on her idea. So let's look at letter C on part A. She didn't know how to read or write. So if you get a notebook and you don't know how to read or write, that could be a problem. So if I look it up, I can scroll down until I find something about not being able to read or write. And I will see right here, line 2, long before I could really read words or write letters. I found a composition notebook but I don't even know how to read words or letters. And so her sister begins to even cause some problems by saying that she's crazy and wondering what in the world is wrong with her. So that could be the answer, but we're allowed to switch, as you can see, if we feel like we need to. Her sister asked if she even needed a notebook. If that's a conflict, it would be because the sister possibly took the notebook away or told the mother, or something might have happened. None of that happened. So we're going to go with letter C. So part two, prove it. Which lines or lines from the poem best expresses the conflict about the not being able to read? Best expresses. So the one I showed you was not the one that was going to be used. Part B, it was empty for now with no way for me to fill them with content. If I have this item and I have no way to use it, what line did that say? Line 5, empty with no way to fill it. Instead of using the line 7 that you might assume, you could use a different line. And so this is practicing the answer with evidence without actually having to do a short answer response, because the answers are already there for you. So that's the best one that explains how in the world is not being able to read or write going to be a conflict. Well, if I don't know how to fill the composition notebook, I never learn, that is going to be a conflict. So we would choose letter A on that one. Next one, regular multiple choice. Which statement is not true? So something that's real important to do whenever you have a not true, that means that there's going to be one that's false and 3 that are true. And so you're only looking for the one that for sure can be false in the statement. And so be careful on these type that you don't do the opposite of what they're asking, which is what a lot of kids end up doing. So I'll move this out of the way, hopefully. Do that, yes. And let's see what our choices are. She doesn't really need to have expensive things to be happy in life. Oh, I thought I fixed that, but I forgot to publish the final response. So when you see this question number 6, I'll make sure I'll write it down before I forget. I'll circle it on my folder, make that minor change so you won't see that mistake. She doesn't really have to have expensive things to be happy in life. So doesn't need to have expensive things. Well, a composition folder just costs $1 or 2. So that would be something that would be true. So I would eliminate that one. Maybe so it doesn't look like Texas. Do something different. She doesn't really know who gave her the composition notebook. That is also true, because it said that on the first stanza. I have no idea who got it for me. She enjoys reading with her classmates, something that she does enjoy. Well, if I don't know how to read, how in the world am I going to enjoy something that I don't know how to do? She's not expressed her feelings. You can tell this person is very expressive in her feelings. She had a hard time containing herself. So that part is not false. That part is true. Uh, she is not afraid to express her feelings when it comes to things that she really enjoys. So the best answer that we're going to say, uh, we're going to select. I want you to notice we're going to select the one that's false, and we're going to eliminate the ones that are true because the question, the keyword in the question said which one is false. So we will click on the one that's false. Oops. Go with the knowledge response. Did I pick the right one? Yes. You can't enjoy reading with classmates if you don't know how to read. Next answer, hot text. Cite evidence from the text in a sentence, a scene, a stanza, a paragraph, or a section. And so they'll have several highlighted for you, but to make it simple in this format, it says select the answer and copy and paste it in the section provided below. Okay, so the answers are below, and we will adjust that slightly to make sure that it does say below and not above. Select the answer below and copy and paste it on the space provided below. So which one is not true? She was not supported. So she was not. Which of the following statements most accurately reflects the sister's attitude? So again, because highlighting is going to be something that for sure will be allowed, then do a lot more of that until we're sure that they're going to allow some other things. Okay. A reflection is like a mirror image, the sister's attitude towards the speaker. Which one of these evidences is true? So the way it says to do it is select the correct answer and copy and paste it in the space provided below. So what we'll do, she was not supportive of the speaker's love for her notebook. Yeah, she wasn't too excited about that. So for now, I'm going to put that one in there. And what you can do, you can copy over it, right click, copy, then left click inside the box, right click, paste. Uh, and the easy thing about the hot text when you see it on the test format, you can just click it and it's already highlighted for you. This has your students do that extra step of selecting one or two or more. Let's see the other ones. She was very excited about what the speaker might one day write in her book. Not one iota of evidence was said about her sister being excited about anything that the speaker was going to do. So we eliminate that. She had no feelings at all regarding the notebook. No, she expressed negative feelings about the notebook. So that's another one that we would eliminate. Okay. And again, what makes it false? No feelings at all. She had some very negative feelings. She was very excited. At no time was she excited about what the speaker was going to do with that notebook because was so smart. She was willing to help her sister. She was so smart. So that's two things. I'm going to circle 7 twice. Because she was so smart, she was willing to help her sister learn to write. Y'all are my guinea pigs, my rough draft. Yes, she was smart because it mentions it Uh, down below, look down at our last stanza. Even though my sister is smarter than I know, where's that? Right here. Even though my sister is smarter than I know, there is something that she can't even begin to understand. Okay? So that one doesn't sound like someone who is going to use her intelligence to help someone out. It's going to be that she's just not supportive of her sister's love for her notebook. As you can see, the answer's in there. It just fits enough uh, to kind of give you a guideline. So that's what would show up. Our next response. Type, it's text entry. So it's sort of like a mini version of the short answer or the extended essay. So you have a string of text, a number, a word, a phrase, or a sentence that you would type there. So let's see what the question is so we can know what to type. In the space provided, write a word or phrase that answers the question below. Which type of writing did the author use in stanza one here, to incorporate the senses? Well, the senses is like the setting. Another word for senses and setting in reading is called imagery. And since the word senses is already there, you could talk about setting. So as long as they have something that said either imagery or establishing the setting, then you could give your students the point for that answer. Number 9 is that short answer? No, it's the one that is laid out where it has 5 bullets. And so you think of it like this. How do I get to 5? Clearly state the idea for the first point. Tell the reader why with some evidence, where your evidence is for the second point. Use the evidence from the selection in your example to decide which evidence is going to be best to help you develop to get to 3 land. And then to get to 4 land or 5 land, go ahead and use the correct capitalization, punctuation, spelling, capitalization, punctuation, and grammar. And then to be sure that you do everything you're being asked, review the selection, plan your response, edit, and revise. Keep in mind that edit and revise is saying, I'm going to take my paper to the editing and revising room of emergency room of editing and revising, keeping in mind that the editing is fixing something called the conventions, the revising is fixing the content, but something else that you might want to begin to include before you do that is another C, what closing can you use to tie everything together to make sure that all of those parts are being answered. But again, we're going to set this aside because we don't want to work on that one yet. We'll make sure we get to part 5 when it comes to extended essay responses. And I will show you some of the answers that I gave. I showed a main one to get what I would consider a 5 response using an answer, textual evidence, and an explanation, and with strong or good grammar. And then I went ahead and showed an example of What would get it a 0, a 1, or a 2? So that you could kind of have a little mini scoring guide to answer this question. And finally, we will look at our last question. The last type is a match grid response. Determine which character traits describe the speaker based on the details presented in the poem. So, who was our subject? Something that you might do is double check who our subject is and then ask, what about them? What is their character? Well, I'm going to use my hands to talk or aim at what they wanted to know. It's their character, but it has to be presented in the poem. So that's what we're looking for in our response. So the speaker is very determined to become a writer. Is that true? That something that is about her character? Determination is a character trait. I'm going to say that yes, that that is true. The speaker is smarter than anyone I know. No, I remember that the poem said that the sister was smarter. So I'm going to say that that one is probably C. And the speaker is appreciative that she has the notebook. That is true. She's very grateful. So we'll click B on that one. And I noticed that 4 responses corresponding to 2 responses. In most of the matching, there were 4 responses on the left, matching to 2 different responses on the right-hand side. And so that's what I did to make it look as close to what your kids are going to see. The sister is crazy to be happy about having the notebook. Well, the sister doesn't even have the notebook. The speaker does. So that's not expressed. So that would be letter D. And so that's all of the answers. And so you're finished. And then what you can do is you can submit your test. And then it has an option where you can download, which I won't let you worry about that right now, but you can download that way you can kind of compare and you can see what the student responds. There's an option to print, or for them that you trust, you can just ask them what their response would be, and then you would be done. So that is an example using a poem of the constructed type response. What we'll do is we'll do 2 other types of genres with constructed type responses. Then we'll get into the short answer and the extended of those same ones from those 3 passages that we'll use. And what I'll try to do each time is get a little bit higher difficulty level so that your kids can practice on all 3 levels. One that could be deemed elementary/middle school, one that could be middle school/high school, and one that maybe would be the most challenging that would be for your 9th or your 10th grade students. Feel free to message me or email me if you have a question. Uh, I'd be happy to send you any information that you might have about the materials, about the CREST online trainings, about coming to your school to do trainings in person, or If you just want the practice test, message me or email me at that email address provided above, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And hopefully that was helpful to you. Just as a reminder, the little red, because we're only working on constructed, it's the answer with 1 or 2 points, regardless of how many uh, parts the answer has. Your kids can only get 1 or 2 points on constructed responses for reading, and only 1 point for all of your editing and revising uh, constructed responses, at least according to the director of reading. I hope that answers all your questions. Feel free to check with me about anything that I might have forgotten or not helped you have a greater understanding of on how to use the folder or how to understand the constructed type responses. God bless you guys and have a great rest of your week or weekend whenever you happen to be watching this. Take care.